Welcome to Island Youth. My name is Carrie. I'm from the Camper Ministry and the Shift Young Adult Ministry. So good to be here with y'all. So John will help me with the iPad. Thank you so much. Alright, let's start with this question. What do these movies have in common? So Avengers Endgame, and then Doctor Strange, Harry Potter, I think this is the last one, and Toy Story 4.
They're all movies.
All movies, yeah, I know. They're all movies. Thank you. Oh, what? All have a hero, yeah. What about you? All part of a series. Cool. All have what? Good guys and climax and yep. Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
All of them have a prequel.
Ooh, that's knowledge right there. Actually, who have watched all these 4 movies? Who have watched all of them? Wow, that's impressive. How many of you have watched 3 of them? Okay, 3 of them, nice. So sorry, there will be spoilers, so just cover your ears if you don't want to hear about that. So yeah, a lot of similarities among these 4 movies. And one of them, I think, is the most important similarity of all. What it is that they all have good guys and they all have bad guys. I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Avengers against Thanos, that we know. Doctor Strange against Scarlet Witch or Wanda. And then in Harry Potter, it's against Voldemort. And in Toy Story 4, there's also a villain. That's the Gabby Gabby doll right here. So Woody is trying to defeat this Gabby Gabby doll. You must remember that. And Swatter, the good guys win, the bad guys are defeated. Do you still remember how you felt when you first saw these movies? What was your feeling? Excited? When you see the bad guys doing all sorts of bad things and nasty things, you feel angry, right? How could they be so bad? And when the good guys are trying to fight the bad guys, you're nervous for them. You want them to win. And at the end, if the good guys have won, they have defeated the bad guys, killed them, or brought them, I don't know, like make them go home or something like that, then you feel, oh, what a relief. That's a moment of joy. The bad guys are punished. They deserve it. They deserve it. Have you ever thought about how you get this feeling? Nobody actually taught us that. What does it mean by the bad guys deserve it? But somehow we know it. It makes us feel good when we see that the bad guys are being punished. It makes us feel good when the good guys are able to take revenge and eye for an eye and then defeat the bad guys. And not just in movies, even in our personal life, when somebody did something wrong to us, we want that guy to be punished. It feels good if we could see that punishment happen to him or her. What if I'm telling you that beneath the desire of revenge is the longing for justice? Beneath our desire for revenge is actually something more. We long for justice. The longing for justice is not wrong. The longing for justice is such a beautiful thing indeed. And in fact, the rule, an eye for an eye, is actually from the Bible. But don't jump to the conclusion so quickly. So today I will show you where we can find the rule, an eye for an eye in the Bible, and what it really means. And then you can decide on your own whether this is a good idea or bad idea. But for now, remember this. Revenge won't bring you to justice. And I will explain why. So first of all, where can we find this rule, an eye for an eye in the Bible? It's in the Old Testament. It's called Leviticus chapter 24, verses 17 to 20. So I'll read it out. If you want to read it from your Bible app, please feel free. It's Leviticus chapter 24. Anyone who takes the life of a human being is to be put to death. Anyone who takes the life of someone's animal must make restitution, life for life. Anyone who injures their neighbor is to be injured in the same manner. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The one who has inflicted the injury must suffer the same injury. Now, that sounds really brutal, isn't it? But there are 2 things that I want you to remember about this Bible passage. This is when God was telling Moses how to handle certain disputes and disagreements among his people. 2 things to remember. First, this is supposed to be the maximum penalty. This is supposed to be the maximum limit that you can impose in a punishment onto somebody. Well, here's the context. When somebody is something wrong, we have the tendency to take things into our own hands, and then we have the tendency to go way too far. We have the tendency to go beyond proportion. And this rule is to avoid that from happening. In fact, there's a more professional term. It's called the principle of exact retribution, or teleon justice. So if your friends or your parents ask you today what you have learned, just throw them these big words, teleon justice. So what it really means is that if a person hits you and then you lost a tooth, how are you going to punish that person? That person, at most, will only be punished by also losing a tooth. Or in practice, you don't need his tooth, right? He will be punished by having to pay you a sum of money, which is the worth of your teeth. But that's it. You can't punish him more. You can't punish him by also hitting his arm or also hitting his leg or asking him to pay you even more money. You can't. Because a tooth is only for a tooth. That's the maximum punishment. And that's why the heart of this rule is actually to ensure justice and fairness. Because when you punish somebody, just to make sure that you don't go way too high or way too low, so that it will be the right amount, just and fair. So this is point one. Point two, this rule is not meant for us to use. Let me say that again. This is not meant for us to use. So what do I mean by that? Well, when something like an argument or a dispute happened, there are two levels to resolve it. First, on a personal level. So maybe you and your friend have some sort of disagreement, you guys can come together, I'm sorry, I forgive you, and you reconcile. That's on a personal level. But when a case is really serious, it's about somebody injuring somebody, or even somebody kills somebody, that case will be brought to the court. And that's the court level. And the thing is, the rule, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, is meant to be used for the court level. It's meant to be used by judges when they have to decide on certain cases. Oh, now that this person injures that person, I need to decide on the punishment. Right, apply this rule, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Not too much, not too little. This is for the court to use. It's actually not for our personal use. So that would mean it's about justice, but not justice in our own hands. About justice, but not justice in our own hands. So right now you might already have this question in mind. Carrie, what if the court is not fair? What if the court is not doing its job? It's not doing justice. What shall we do? Now that's an extremely complicated topic, which I might need 3 or 4 more sermons to go through, but for now, I will give you my very short answer. Well, all courts, all authority on earth are made up by human beings. And we all know, human beings make mistakes. We are flawed. We are bound to be imperfect. And that's why even the courts, even the authority, they might make mistakes. There might be imperfections. But then we have a God who is always righteous, always perfect. And we can put our trust in Him that one day He will bring the ultimate righteousness to us all. One day He will restore everything and correct every mistake. But as we wait for that day to happen, we don't just sit here and do nothing, right? We could still do our part to add a little bit of justice to this world and to reduce a little bit of injustice in this world when we can. And I think if we use the rule eye for eye, tooth for tooth correctly, in a correct context, then we are helping. We are adding a little bit of justice in this world and avoiding a little bit of injustice in this world as we wait for God to do the ultimate justice, the kind of act of restoration. So how about what Jesus thinks about this rule? So Jesus talks about that in Matthew. That is part of the Sermon on the Mount. It can be found in chapter 5. So I will read this out for us. Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 to 42. You have heard that it was said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Now that's a lot to digest right there. So Jesus began with the rule eye for eye, tooth for tooth that we just read in Leviticus. And then Jesus said, but, there's a but. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. Now be careful. Jesus didn't say, do not resist evilness. He was saying, do not resist an evil person. And that's different. Because Jesus doesn't like evilness either. He's not telling us to tolerate evilness. In fact, there are so many stories in the Bible about Jesus helping the weak, helping the poor, Jesus calling out the Pharisees who are not doing justice, Jesus flipping tables, and so on and so forth. Jesus doesn't like evilness either. But when he said, do not resist an evil person, what he meant was, don't take revenge. Don't take things into your own hands when something went wrong, because your anger will affect your judgment, and you might act out of your impulse. You might be doing something way beyond scale. You may go way too far with your own punishment, and that will result in injustice, the very thing that the rule an eye for an eye tries to avoid, and that's not good. And so what it really means is don't take revenge. Alright, don't take revenge. I get that. So what do I actually have to do? How exactly can I respond? Jesus made 4 examples about how we could apply this, and I'll go through them one by one. First, if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. So you might be thinking of this, Batman slap. Nice. Great. But there's a but. What Jesus was saying is actually this. This is actually a closer resemblance of what he really means. Now let me invite John. I want him to demonstrate for us. And I promise that it won't hurt, okay? It won't hurt. Don't be afraid. Okay? You okay? Feeling fine? Yeah.
He can handle it.
Alright, I'll have to explain. So in the old times, and even in present times, relax. Most people use their right hand. Most people. And so when Jesus said that, he also assumed that that person is using his right hand. But when you use your right hand to slap a person, you're slapping his left cheek. That doesn't make sense. He said slapping on the right cheek. Right hand, right cheek. How can you slap him? By the back of your hand. So you're doing this. So, what is that? That's an insult. You are insulting him. You're basically saying, John, yeah? You think you're handsome? You think you're good? Huh? You're insulting him when you're slapping on somebody else's right cheek. Thanks, John. Thanks for serving the Lord by Jesus was not referring to a physical injury. Jesus was not saying that, oh, if you got hit by a person, just let him hit you until you bleed, until you die. No, Jesus was not referring to a physical kind of Batman-style hitting. What Jesus was referring to is an insult. When somebody are insulting you. So how do you respond? If somebody tries to insult you, just let them be. You don't have to insult them back. You don't have to insult them back. And what do I mean by that? Well, have you guys been insulted before? I mean, John has just been insulted by me, so other than him, who has been insulted before? Has anybody laughed at you before? Most of us have, right? It's really, really bad. Well, me too. When I was in high school, in fact, now as well, I mean, I speak with an accent, as you can tell. I can speak English, but I grew up in Hong Kong. I speak with a Cantonese accent, and I can't control my accent. If I could control my accent, I wish I could sound more British, more American, more Australian, but I can't. And in my high school, all of my classmates, they speak perfect English, native English. And so whenever I spoke, they would laugh at me. Oh, Carrie, your accent is so funny. Give me a motto, please. Oh, your accent is so interesting. And they would say things like that. And that made me feel really, really bad. They were insulting me for my accent, which I can't control. And having an accent is not even wrong. So When I was being insulted because of an accident, how could I respond? Two options. I could insult them back, or, as Jesus has taught us, just let them be. And if you choose to just let them be, it's actually an active choice. You choose to let them be. You choose to not go down the way of personal revenge. It's not a passive act. It's not like passively, okay, I'll just tolerate. No, you are making an active choice to do the right thing by not insulting them back. But in fact, in practice, you will understand that if you insult them back, they will insult you again, and you have to insult them again, and this will just go on forever and ever and ever. It won't do anybody good. So, what Jesus was saying is that if somebody insults you, you have the choice to just let them be and don't take personal revenge on them. Alright, so this is the first example. Let's go to the next example. If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. Now, shirt is easily the one that we're wearing right now, but coat is different. In the Old Testament times, you're not allowed to keep somebody else's coat overnight because coat is so important. It keeps people warm. You must return the coat to the owner before sunset. So the standard that Jesus is setting right here is pretty high. When somebody takes something away from you, give them more. Give them back even more. Don't overcome evil with evil. Overcome evil with good. And similarly, if someone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. In verse 41. Well, context is that in the past, a Roman soldier could ask a person to carry his backpack and walk for 1 mile for him. And Jesus was saying that you're being asked to do so. Go for an extra mile. Walk 2 miles for him. Carry his backpack and help him with 2 miles. Again, we don't overcome evil with evil. We overcome evil with good. We respond with kindness and goodness. We transform and attempt to manipulate into an act of love. So how do I apply that? Well, let me use the same example that I used just now. So I was being insulted because of my accent. It sounded very Cantonese. So I choose not to insult them back. What else can I do? What else can I do? Buy them gifts? Good idea. What if I respond with goodness? What if I offer help to them? Well, my English doesn't sound very perfect, but my Cantonese is pretty perfect, I would say. My Mandarin is pretty good. Would you need help with learning Mandarin? Well, phrase that carefully. Otherwise, it will become an insult for their Mandarin, which is not good either. But if you phrase it kindly, if you offer help, that's a good response. You could actually respond with something kind, something good in these situations. Last but not least, give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Now that's pretty straightforward. When somebody asks you for help, offer your help. Because we are taught to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Alright, 4 examples Jesus has used. What's the conclusion? When somebody insults you, when somebody takes something away from you, when somebody asks you to do something, carry my backpack for a mile, so on and so forth, we don't need to take revenge. We don't need to take retaliation. We don't have to take things into our own hands because that won't result in justice. But I will add one more thing to that. Don't cover it up either. Don't cover up injustice either. Jesus is not telling us to just tolerate, pretend nothing bad is happening and just go on. No, Jesus hates injustice. Jesus cares about justice in this world. We know about that from the Bible already. In fact, Jesus never said the rule an eye for an eye is a bad rule. An eye for an eye is a good rule, but it's a rule to be applied on the court level for judges to decide on those cases. On a personal level, we don't use that. We don't hurt other people just because other people have hurt us. In fact, we don't use the rule, which is designed for justice, to justify the injustice that we inflict on others. Now, this is a really long sentence. Let me say that again. Don't use the rule, which is designed for justice, to justify the injustice that we inflict on others. The rule an eye for an eye is designed for justice. But if we use it on a personal level, if we take revenge, if we take things into our own hands, that will cause injustice. And that's not what we want. Alright, so you will ask, so what am I going to do now? If something bad happened to me, if someone is doing something really bad to me, how do I respond? Well, honestly, I don't have a whole list of model answers for all scenarios in life, but there could be a lot of options. It could be telling somebody who are in a right position to help, your parents or teachers. It could be pause and ask somebody for advice before thinking about how to respond. There are a lot of options other than taking personal revenge. And remember that whatever options we take, whatever we do it as ambassadors of Christ. We are representatives of Jesus. When other people look at how we respond to bad things and bad guys, we want them to see Jesus' way and how it is different from the worldly approach. We want them to see that personal revenge is not a good way. We want them to see Jesus' way. So what is Jesus' way? We as representatives of Jesus, we care about justice. We care about justice, and that's exactly why we don't take justice into our own hands. We have Jesus who overcame death and came back to life. He overcame evil with goodness. And so we also have the ability to overcome evil with good. Now,